Yo, James, what you started with? Looks like we're late. What should we do? Let's ask us dude over there. Have you got a smoke for me? No, I don't smoke cigarettes. Maar meneer, kan jy ook vir ons sê waar ons moet gaan asseblief?
Ek is nie 'n meneer nie, roof. 'n Meneer is 'n ding wat in 'n gat in die grond bly. En snags skryp hy uit en blaf in sy eie gat. Het jy my? Wie is jy?
Van Tonder, noem my Boetie.
In die Weermag het jy 'n nommerrang voorletters aan van. Wie is jy?
Do you have to shout like that? I mean, he's only asking you a question. Ja, is gevaarlik. Bel vir my uit die hart af.
Shut up! Wie is jy, kaboutermannetjie?
Wie is jou kaboutermannetjie?
Jou naam!
Kevin John Ball.
Kevin John Ball. Jy is seker van Tonder.
Ja, eintlik is ek Moerdijk van Tonder. Moerdijk is my stiefpa se van Tonder is my eie.
Hou jou bek, Moerdijk. As ek nou sê beweeg, dan tel julle daai tasse van julle op, jiphoogte, en julle vat die pas en marseer tot by die ander troepe wat klaar besig is om kie te trek. Het julle my?
Ek wil nie ongeskiklik nie, maar jy praat verskriklik vinnig en ek kan genuinely nie verstaan wat jy sê.
Shut up! Tel op my tas. Voorwaarts, mars! Likka-kikka-kikka-kei! 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 Palager, Robert! Palager! Likka-kikka-kikka-kei! Pas! Pas! Kom terug! Sta uit, sta uit! Goed. Right, next. Stanne. Toe, sta uit, sta uit! Kom, stanne. Recht, hoes. Next. Hij is gereed. Man, hoes. Nicky is bij Sun City. Recht, hoes. Kijk voor je troep. Stanne. Recht, hoes. Next. Stanne. Hoes. Hoes. Next. Stanne. Recht, hoes. Hoes. Next. Hoes? Hoes troep over je omelet, hè? Next. Hoes. Next. Tanne. Re. Hoes. Next. Tanne. Re. Hoes. Next. Kom. Tanne. Re. Hoes. Hoes troep over je omelet, hè? Next. Tanne. Re. What's this?
That's a man's brand.
Okay. Hoes. Next.
sien.
Kom, Sens, roer jou. Hy mens agterkom, moenie vir my loer nie. Is nie 'n hamburger nie. Hallo! As ek by hierdie park ook van julle aankom, dan staan elke man by die voeteneind van sy bed en hy staan op aandag. Het julle my? Het julle my? Ja. Jy staan op aandag, met jou voete by mekaar en jou hande langs jou sye. Vuiste toegeknyp, pens ingetrek en jy roer nie. Jy proetel nie en jy krap nie. Jy swai nie jou stert nie en lig ook nie jou bene. Het julle my? Wat lag jy roof? Wat lag jy? Kry jy tande warm? Hoor jy my?
Ja.
Ja, korporaal.
Ja, korporaal.
Korporaal! Korporaal! Gaan op! Waar kyk jy? Jy kyk waar het blou is. Jy kyk oor my kop of oor my skouer. Jy kyk net vir my as jy my wil optel. Het julle my? Het julle my? Ja! Goed. Julle is in die Weermag omdat die staat julle opgeroep het. Glo jy dis moontlik om spooke op te roep, roof?
Ja, korporaal.
Ja, korporaal. Maar die Weermag doen dit 2 keer elke jaar, korporaal. Weet jy hoe noem ek jou roof,
Ja, korporaal.
Want jy roof die staat se geld. Weet jy nou hoekom noem ek jou roof,
Ja, korporaal.
Ja, korporaal.
Ja, korporaal.
Van nou af is ek julle baas. As jy nie langs die pad afchop nie, maak ek soldate van julle. Trek aan die pens van jou, staan so prek met ferry. Shut up! Roofie soos jy, vreet ek op voor breakfast en ek spoeg net die hare uit. Maar moet al nie trek bossies uit in my tuin, het jy my? Het jy my?
Ja, korporaal.
Wat lag hierop? Hier. Is dit een vir almal en almal vir een. Sluk in my stront en jy kou. Tim! As een droog maak, chop almal af. Het julle my?
Ja, korporaal.
Ek hoor niks.
Ja, korporaal.
Wie is jy, varknek?
Net kok.
Kyk waar het blou is. Kyk waar het blou is. Is jy hare gat, roof? Voor by die hek waar jy ingekom het staan na 'n boom is 400 meter. Is jy al terug? Beweeg! Beweeg! Julle is die ergste spul slap gatte wat ek in my lewe teëgekom het. En ek moet van julle soldate maak. Van jou ook, kaboutermannetjie.
82111262 BGKJ Ball, korporaal.
Waarvoor staan die kabel?
Kabouter mannetjie, korporaal.
Shut up. K staan vir kaboutermannetjie. K staan ook vir iets wat ek nie van kaboutermannetjies vat nie. Het jy my?
Ja, korporaal.
Het jy my?
Ja, korporaal.
Deling op meneer. Hey, om, ja. Tak 3, ja. Ja, ja. Tak 3, ja. Goed. Right. Als ik zeg beweeg, dan vat jullie die blaadjes weer bij je terug. Starig op jullie maken, man. Af. Elleboog neer. Move. Beweeg, troep, beweeg. Af van haar niet. Kom on, beweeg. Beweeg.
Kom, sien, maak jou klaar, ek het voorkom.
Doe nou. Waar nog eens? Hier al terug. Wauw. Knor voor jouw gat. Let op jullie maar, Wat krijg je zo'n blauw gat op je aan, Rob? Af van die graad af. Waar? Doe, breng de elleboog neer. Ja, zoek jullie niet eens, man. Kwijt, kans bij eind! Wat doet je dan in de pas? Stem uit! Nu dadelijk! Dat ik net beweeg aan drieën aan, beweeg! Beweeg, Robert, beweeg! Toe, 3 aan 3! Tek af, tek af! Tek af, sorry! Mijn tek in je hand, trek hem aan! Trek hem aan! Afdeling! Afdeling, aandag! Op die plek, rust! En genoeg jullie wijs om te leppen krol. Jullie beter mooi kijken hoe ik het doen, het jullie mij? Ja, mevrouw. Best leppen krol. Toen je het naar die vijand doen, niet zien niet.
Het is onmogelijk dat je nou zo slecht
Je
komt op elkaar kan.
en jouw liefste. Je blijft verlagen als moeder, het jullie mij, Robert? Ja, mevrouw. Het jullie mij, Robert?
Troepen, corporaal, troepen. En je behandelt het als mensen, man.
Kijk voor jou. Je langer voet erop. Ja, corporaal. Laat hij. Nou gebruik je hij zeer goed voor je om je aan te stappen, weet je mee? Ja, corporaal. Kijk voor jou langer. Als die maatjes niet samenwerken, en dan brullen ze de hele dag, weet jullie mee? Ja, corporaal. Ik hoor dat? Ja, corporaal. Links. Met de deur. Links. Op. Rug. En weer achter. Links. Voorwaarts. Voort. Links. Ja. Links. Ja. Links. Ja. Links. Links. Ja. Links. Ja. Links. Wat mijn adem. Wat mijn adem. Rug is op. Rug. Heeft u nou bepikt in die rug? Tweede adem. Links. Ja. Links. Ja. Links. Ja. Links. Links. Ja. Links. Af. Links. Op. Op, meneer. Links, op. Ja, zet ja. Back neck. Heb jij een linkervoet of weet je niet? Geen corporaal. Zeg nou eens even weg. En wanneer ik een stofstreep in en dan kom je terug met een zakdoek in je hand, weet je mee? Ja, corporaal. Beweeg. Leg af, leg af. Wat zit die? Wat de dingen zit die? Wat de dingen zit die? Ik band hem aan die oor vast, zet je mee erop. Ja, kom eraf. Maak vast, maak vast. Hey, stand stil nou. Niet jij, niet haast. Komt er maar niet spannend. Doe, jou. Weet je waar je linker bent?
Ja, corporaal.
Nou, band hem vast. Toe. Toe, roer jou. Er is niet al tijd niet. Zeg nou, zij langs. Dan gebruik je de IPN, heet je mee?
Ja, corporaal.
Goed. Kijk voor Ellen. Rechtsaf, rechtsaf. Links. Met de deur, met de deur. Links. Op. Rug. En weer achter, links. Voorwaarts. Voort. Links. Ja, links. Ja, links. Ja, links. Links. Ja, links. Ja, links. Op en adem, op en adem.
Ik heb hier alweer vloer, corporaal.
teerpad staan. Hy het nou 'n naweek pas en hy wil huis toe gaan. Laai hom op, neem hom saam, hy het nog 'n lang pad om te gaan. Daai troepie wat daar langs, die ry veilig teken staan. Suid of oos, noord of wes, wie weet waarheen hy moet gaan. Daai troepie wat daar langs, die ry veilig teken staan. Hy staan daar heel geduldig, sonder metgesel. En vir tydverdryf begin hy na klippe skop en dan begin hy bakkies tel. Sy hare is maar kort en sy mindae is nog lang, maar sy skouers is breed en sterk en sy arms is bruin gebrand. As jy daai troepie oplaai en vra dit met hom gaan, bedank hy jou en sê, ag nee, dit gaan goed, ek het maar net 'n bietjie lank gestaan. Dan vertel hy jou van die pikparade en die vasbyt in die kamp. En hoe hy en die ander mekkies arms swaai en voete stamp. En Louis is die mindaar-trein wat hulle nog flou gaan ry. Hy speel gitaar en die ander sing saam vol bors voor die day. Met trots doen hy sy diensplig, gerespekteer net waar hy gaan. Hy is meer as net 'n nommer, hy is 'n man wat sy man kan staan. Hy is maar net 'n troepie wat daar langs die teerpad staan. Hy het nou 'n naweek pas en hy wil huis toe gaan. Laai hom op, neem hom saam, hy het nog 'n lang pad om te gaan. Daai troepie wat daar langs, die ry veilig teken staan. Suid of oos, noord of wes, wie weet waarheen hy moet gaan. Daai troepie wat daar langs, die ry veilig teken staan. Hy vertel jou van die lekker spens wat hy van die huis af kry. Maar sy buddies en sy bungalow, hulle eet altyd meer as hy. Maar saans as die ligte uit is, sonder dat hulle daarvan weet, lê hy skelm onder sy kombers en lekker biltong eet. Die boodskap oor die radio en die woorde in daai brief sê vas by troepie ons verlang na jou. Onthou, ons het jou lief. Hierdie liedjie word dalk nooit te treffer. Toch, al wat ek wil vra, is dat elkeen van ons as motoriste ook ons deeltjie by sal dra. Laai hom op, neem hom saam, hy het nog 'n lang pad om te gaan. Daai troepie wat daar langs, die ry veilig teken staan. Suid of oos, noord of wes, wie weet waarheen hy moet gaan. Daai troepie wat daar, die ry veilig teken.
But her heart just ain't beating like you. Oh, heart, you've got to watch out now, or else she's gonna break you in two. Oh, heart, you better believe me. Save yourself or somebody new. Don't make such a fuss. There's no hope for us. She don't care the way that you do. Yes, I'm telling you, heart, you're driving me crazy. Heart, you heard all that I say. Oh, heart, she doesn't want you. There's no use in acting this way. Yes, I'm telling you, heart, you better believe me. Save yourself from somebody new. Don't make such a fuss. There's no hope for us. don't care the way that you do. Yes, I'm telling you, heart, you're driving me crazy. Oh, heart, we'll find somebody new. Oh, heart, you're driving crazy. Oh, heart, we'll find somebody new. Yes, I'm telling you.
Na die winde wat sy arms om my vou, so verlang ek as die son en die maan en die wind en die wolke oor my gaan. Verlang jy ook na my, daar waar jy nou in die verre lande bly, en verlang jy as die son en die maan en die wind en die wolke oor jou gaan. Ek verlang na jou, na die winde wat sy arms om my vou, so verlang ek as die son en die maan en die wind en die wolke oor jou gaan. As die son en die maan en die wind en die wolke oor my gaan. Verlang jy na my, daar waar jy nou in die verre lande bly, en verlang jy as die son en die maan en die wind en die wolke oor jou gaan.
Jy vergeet nou van die voorregte van bierdrank en van pas, want dis iets van die verlede. En van jou gaan ek 'n verhaal gemaak word en dit is ons 'n goeie ene. Staan ons mekaar baie mooi. Jy het nou 10 minute as jy binne hy kaserne. Dan staan jy langs jou bed, dan blink daai vloer. Terug! je kant toe gaan om te gaan voel. Maar die bellen wil ons niet samenwerken niet. Stel 5 minuten buiten. Ja! Tel hem op, stop! Zie je, dat is hoe dit gedoen wordt. Dan tel je mij, ik zoek je op mijn bevel. Dan geef ik je 45 seconden. Kom daar boom. Dan sta je daar. Kom terug, zet je uit. Dat is wat is gezegd. En toen lijkt het vanmorgen is het zo vaak op. En ik heb gezegd, is wel voor keuzes. Als dan de handen komt praten. Dan luister jij. Wat doe jij? Luister! Dank u, Mike. Jan! Ja! Wat doe jij? Jij net zomaar woord te laag, nee, hou je bek! Luister! Ja, dat is niet, stand toch. Dat is niet een beetje niet uit.
Kom bij! I wanna be a section leader. I wanna be a section leader. I wanna go up to the border. I wanna go up to the border. I wanna go to South Angola. I wanna go to South Angola.
Aan vorm. Afdan. Hoi. 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 Afdan. Goed. Rechts, dames en heren. Rechts. Rechts op de flank. Voorwaarts, voorts. Hoi, kijk op. Hoi. Voorts. Hoi. Hoi. Samen met model 15 van de LBBV, model 15 van LCCS. En dat is enige wat ons met baie aandag aan skenk. Hoe moet die taak bekend te stel? Heel belangrijk. Stel die doel van die taak in termen van organisatie, doelwit, bereiker. Alles wat jy vir iemand in die wêreld of waar ook al gaan leer, moet 'n doel hê in die lewe. Sonder 'n doel gaan jy niks bereik nie. So jy jou mense sê veldkuns gaan leer, of jy gaan jou mense leer om 'n trop te was, of jy gaan vir jou mense, dit is baie belangrik. Verstaan ons dit? Vertel ons die troep wat se voordele dit het om inhou as hy dit doen. Het jy dit klaar? Goed. Kom die volgende punt. Ons kom ons nou reeds gebeur voor loopbaan opleiding. So jy het nou klaar sê, jy is enige doen, dan help dit nie jy gaan begin met les 18 nie. Om op te skiet met die wapen en jy nog nie troep geleer die weg nie vir die wapen. Dus die stel dat jy mekaar bestuur. Jy wil in die kar ry, maar jy weet nie om mekaar aan te skakel. Verstaan ons dit baie belangrik? Interessant te maak die troepe, moet jy, as jy kan, operasionele omstandighede gebruik van jou werk. Want dit is waar die troep wel opgelei word. Is dit nie so nie? Goed, hy gaan operasionele gebied toe, hy gaan daar werk. Vertel hom, wat gaan hierdie werk in verband hou? Die laatste punt, jy gee gewoonlik geleentheid te vraag. Altyd, onthou dit.
Interessant maak. Wees.
Jy wou nie praat? Nee, sit. Goed, hy sit met duidelik verder.
Die geleentheid gee dit vraag. As iets onduidelik was, kan hy nou die geleentheid kry om te vraag.
Goed, sit. Baie mense, verstaan ons almal dit? Gaan hy die vangers maar breek.
3, 1.
Ontspannen, hier!
1, 3, 1. 3, 1. 3, 1. 3, 1. 3, 1.
Sit up!
1, 3, 1.
Dit is jou verkrag. Op! Voor! Op! So de kop, nie so nie, sy het deur mekaar. Voor! Op! Voor! Op! Ek sê jy lyk bygooi, hè? Ons wil die arms bewerk. Voor! Op! Voor! Op! Voor! Draai om, draai om, draai om! Sy weeg 4,65 kilogram, maar sy kan 50 kilogram weeg na vandag. Jy moet uiteindelik draai nie, maak die weer reguit. Jy moet leer om die wapen te kan hanteer, die gewag kan vat van die wapen. Raai, kry die wapen voor je bors. En die blisbreken vast. Zelf is de aftellingslijn. Aftellings, en dan is hy op. Op!
1, 2,
Vertel ons snel.
3, 5, 6, 7, 8.
En dan vir die wapen vat, roep jy met die wapen vat. Die wapen kan jou lewe red eendag.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Dan 5 is in die klas. Kom on, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. En dan gaan we. Elementary methods to cross obstacles. Soorte. Ons het heininge. Ons het houtheininge. Ons het riviere, ons het oop vlaktes. Ek wil hê jy moet hier op jou linkerkant kyk. Wat het ons daar? In die werklike lewe wat dit eintlik is. Elkeen van hulle voorstel. Anders in die hier jy jou maatjies in 'n patrollieformasie, kom julle by 'n draadheining. Wat is die eerste ding wat julle gaan doen as julle by 'n draadheining kom? Duplisie. Die eerste ding.
Sal knap staan.
Julle gaan hom knap. Goed, mense, dink verder ons is besig met oorlog. So word dit altyd na ag neem, soos hy eers uiteindelik dekking neem. Dan gaan ons 2 mense hê wat uitgaan en hulle gaan dan die draad vir ons knip. Hoe gaan ons die draad knip? Loop.
Ons gaan hom probeer knip dat hy nie raas nie.
Goed, ons gaan knip dat hy raas nie, ons gaan die draad 8 voet hoog. Deze klein lange dijk, hoe gaan jy waarom kom?
So iemand kry my te help.
Hy gaan iemand kry om te help, doodreg. Dis jy nou hier. Die rivier is vol water en die rivier is vol plathonde. Julle ken die plathonde in die Weermag, nee? Die crocodiles. Hoe gaan jy oor daai rivier? Dis al maniere hoe jy ooit daar gehoor kom. Het julle mense dit so? Nou hier op die hindernisbaan veronderstel het ons 'n rivier, ons het houtheininge, ons het draadheininge, ons het alles. Ons gaan nou soontoe, gaan prakties self doen. Hoe gaan ons hierdie ding oorsteek? Wat het ons daar in die klaskamer gesê? Hæ? So mekaar help, nee? Het julle mense dit so? Ja. My wapen. Goed. Jy gaan nou daai mense gebruik as 'n trapleer. Jy gaan op sy skelet uitrusting trap en dan gaan jy die heining nie. Jy het ook nie jou vinger op die sneller van die wapen terwyl jy oorgaan nie. Jy trap vas, af, oor en dan gly jy oor. Het julle dit? Jou wapen raak nie die hindernis nie en jy's aan die ander kant oor. Het julle mense dit so? Ja, goed. vryf by die tou, ons help nou ons baadjies. Vlug voor hulle, ons gaan, vlug en vlug. Come on, you must move, man! Inside, in! Right, Jack! Stop it now, stop it now. Wat jy nou tans gesien het, was 'n kort opsomming van die seksleerkursus ORD 8423, wat oor 'n tydperk van 7 maande gestrek het. Die eerste 9 weke van die kursus was 'n oriënteringsfase, waarvan baie van die manne geslaag het, baie manne gedryf het. Baie manne het swaar gekry, baie manne het gelag die kursus deurgegaan. Daarna is die mense toe besig met tweede fase opleiding, waarvan hulle 'n 3 weke kursus, die ammunisieskool 97 in de Aar bygewoon het. Menige van die manne het geslaag, menige van die manne het gedryf, maar die gemiddeld was tans goed. Verder het die mense opleiding op pos en PP-gas gekry. Van die mense is opgelei as hulpinstrukteurs om agter te bly in 'n onderhoudseenheid. Die res van die mense word verplaas in die RSA, sowel as die grens. Die globale doelwit van die hele kursus was om seksleiers op te lei, om die gevegstroop onderhoudseenheid te kan werk in die grens. Hiermee verklaar ek nou die kursus klaar.
Weermag naar Raymond, beste, Weermag beste. Weerman Christian Botha, Weerman Botha. Private Ian Irvin, Private Irvin. Weerman Ronald Kirby, Weerman Kirby. Weerman Paul Langedijk, Weerman Langedijk. Met Steven Vermeulen, Private Vermeulen. Private Keith Wells. Weerman Pieter Wessels, Weerman Weerman Dennis. Private. toekomst. En mijn gedrag zal te alle tijden zodanig wees, dat het tot eer van die korps, die Weermag en mijn land zal strek, ongeacht die situatie waarin ik mij bevind. Ik zal niet mijn rang of positie misbruiken om plezier, winst of persoonlijke veiligheid te krijgen niet.
1, 2, 3.
I am proud of the roles of non-commissioned officers, and I will at all times conduct myself so as to be committed for the corps, the military service, and my country, regardless of the situation in which I find myself. I will not use my grade or position to attain pleasure, profit, or personal safety.
Die rang wat we vanavond gekry het is onderkorporaal, beskou ons almal seker in die leer as die belangrikste rang. Dis die eerste keer dat jy gesag kry deur middel van 'n rang. Gesag wat vir jou toegedien is binne in die korps wat jy nou dien. U moet u mense vertroue in u laat kry. U moet netjies wees op die drag en keurig op die taal gebruik. U is vanaand baie netjies toe jy voor my verskyn het om die rang te kry. U moet dit elke dag so netjies wees. U weet eerste indrukke tel. 'n Mooi skoon eenheid is mooi as nuwe troepe hier kom. Maar 'n onderkorporaal wat netjies is, vier en regop is net so 'n goeie indruk vir die nuwe mense.
3.
On the long road towards aviation excellence, there will undoubtedly be a mirage or two in the distance. This symbolism is extremely applicable to the Mirage aircraft, as the reputation thereof as a potent F-1 aircraft began in 1975, when the first Mirage F-1CZ touched down on local soil. Piloted by Major Chris Lombard, who would later become Chief of Air Staff Operations, this aircraft took off from Mérignac in Bordeaux, France, to meet its first export customer at the bottom of the African continent. The Mirage F-1CZ was the natural successor to the delta-winged Mirage 3 fighter aircraft and featured an impressive array of improvements on its predecessor. Most obvious of these was a convention of the Mirage 3. Its patrol endurance was 3 times that of its predecessor, making it the obvious choice for the South African Air Force as its new fighter aircraft. In early 1975, 16 of these fighters were delivered to No. 3 Squadron at Air Force Base Waterkloof. Most of these aircraft were transported to the squadron by sea and road. A year after the arrival of the first F-1CZs, the South African Air Force's first Mirage F-1AZ departed from France and headed south to join our line of fighters. This aircraft was a clear-weather derivative of the Mirage F-1CZ Interceptor, optimized for the Z, and appealed to the South African Air Force since most potential attack missions would be flown in clear weather. The first of the Mirage F-1AZs was delivered to No. 1 Squadron in 1976. At that stage, the South African Air Force was already involved in the Southwest African bush conflict, and the acquisition of these potent fighters could not have come at a better time. In 1978-79, 1 and 3 Squadron were deployed for the first time in the operational area. The two F-1 variants complemented one another on the battlefield. The Mirage F-1CZs from 3 Squadron were equipped with a powerful all-weather Thompson CSF Serrano 4 radar system. In its interceptor role, the F-1CZ typically carried 2 Magic infrared. 3 Squadron operated from Ondangwa in northern Southwest Africa. This squadron was tasked with extensive strike missions against SWAPO. During an aerial reconnaissance mission, the F-1CZs were attacked by MiG-21s. 3 Squadron retaliated and shot down one of the MiGs, marking this squadron's first kill since the Second World War. In 1982, the pilot responsible for the first kill, Major Johan Rankin, shot down a second MiG. A total of 600 sorties were flown by 3 Squadron during this war. After the war, the Mirage F-1CZ's peacetime duties included the retention of air combat maneuver capabilities and the refinement thereof in terms of the third-generation air-to-air missile threat. 3 Squadron was, however, disbanded in September 1992, as No. 1 Squadron also played an indispensable role during the Angolan conflict. Some statistics from the last phases of this conflict indicates that 1 Squadron flew 643 sorties between the period of September 87 and March 88. This aircraft offered a 2-fold increase in combat radius. The AIDA ranging radar is rather small, and as a result, a retractable air-to-air refueling probe can be housed in the nose. In the air combat role, the F-1AZ could be utilized for clear-weather interception missions with air-to-air missiles, such as the Matra R550 Magic or the Arms Corps V-3B Kukri infrared missile. The F-1AZ's navigation weapon system included a navigation computer, a bombing computer, and a laser designator, which enabled automatic release of weapons. After the end during the Bush conflict, this responsibility was transferred during the course of 93-94 to 2 Squadron in order to ensure that the transition phase could be bridged as smoothly as possible. Currently, 1 Squadron carries the title of the Principal Air-to-Ground Attack Squadron in the South African Air Force. This squadron, furthermore, sufficiently assists 2 Squadron as the Principal Air Combat Squadron in its secondary role. Technological development is obviously of vital importance for the survival of competency in the South African Air Force. South Africa is the only country in the world that has had both Mirage types in service and a competent industry supporting them. In its quest to retain this competency, the South African aerospace company, Aerosud, entered into a joint venture with the Russian aerospace company, Rosjet, to create the so-called Super Mirage F1. This upgrade package essentially consisted of the fitting of a new afterburning turbofan into the Mirages. This turbofan, the RD-33, which powers the MiG-29. The use of this fan will result in increased takeoff weight and lower fuel consumption. This project, however, was discontinued in 1995. The bottom line, however, is that this upgrade offers the Mirage F1 the power and handling of a new technology fighter engine. Avionics are especially critical in fighters such as the Mirage F1AZ. Therefore, this aircraft was the obvious choice when it was decided to improve the avionics system in order to render the South African fighter pilot more effective. Mirage 235 was first in line to receive this facelift. The work that was done on this aircraft forms the cornerstone of the development of a modular, generic avionics suite that can be configurated to different applications in different aircraft. In its final form, it will be a fully integrated avionics system capable of providing any modern avionics function. Air shows also form part of the Mirage F1AZ's peacetime activities. These shows, which are held frequently at various locations throughout the country, enable the public to rub shoulders with their country's heritage of aerial combat, retain operational capability. There are different types of bomb delivery maneuvers conducted by the Mirage. The 14-bomb configuration was developed to allow greater flexibility in use of the F1AZ in the close air support and strike role. Through the implementation of this type of delivery, it is possible to attack more than one target with sufficient bombs in each attack. This type of configuration also allows for greater area coverage in a one-off attack. Over the past 21 years, the Mirage F1 aircraft gained for itself the reputation of a reliable and effective fighter. It can still be depended upon to protect our skies, and will do so until the time comes to bid farewell to this pillar of strength. For the time being, however, it is apt to congratulate the Mirage F1 aircraft on 21 years of service.
Angola is one of the aspects of a conflict which has kept unstable a huge African region under Cuban, East German and Soviet domination. Countering this alien presence on an already volatile continent are dozens of South African army patrols like this one, moving on foot and often ranging for hundreds of kilometers at a stretch without any outside source of support. Compact, independent of supply, and totally self-contained for survival and defense, these are the men that have struck terror into many a stout heart. For these white-officered black soldiers are the seasoned veterans of a decade of unconventional warfare. They fought first against Lisbon's legions during the late 60s and early 70s. Now it's against the Soviet Union and its African cohorts. Today their role in the war is to scout for evidence of Swapo terrorists, the same movement which has threatened to remove South African presence from Namibia by force of arms, and which operates primarily from Angolan soil. Much of the movement inside this hostile terrain is restricted to earlier and later parts of the day. Long experience has taught these soldiers that activity during the hours when the sun reaches its peak can be counterproductive. All considerations essentially narrow down to the availability of water or whatever other liquid might be available. It's then that the major meal of the day might be prepared. Most times, this consists of standard issue food of the type that is universally known in South Africa's operational area as rat packs. Back at base, the pace slows noticeably until the next phase of the operation is reached. Officers and men of all races mix easily, their dress and demeanor reflecting the rugged bush life to which the majority are subjected, for this is an elite corps. On patrol, the men might be required to work in the same set of clothes for a month, without once being able to wash their faces. Always, white officers and NCOs black their faces and expose parts of their body. Angola is a black man's country, where history has proved the white are transient, even though the Portuguese held it for 5 centuries.
We are now in South Angola, a country that the Portuguese often term Terras de Fim Mundo, the land at the end of the earth. It's here where the South Africans have taken the war to the enemy. They send in search and destroy teams in order to take out SWAPO terrorists. These people are preparing for an operation. We've caught them at the last moment on the ground, just before they're about to take off. Among them are quite a few illustrious war heroes, including one of them, Corporal Costa, who recently was awarded one of the highest medals in the South African Army, the Honoris Crux. He achieved his role in an attack several years ago, in which he brought out 12 wounded. Captain Jules here is a 25-year-old South African Army captain, serving with this Special Forces team. And how long have you been in the bush?
I've been in the bush now roughly over a month.
And how do you live when you are on your own like that? Do you have support from the South Africans, supply?
Yes, we do have support from South African supply. If we don't get support, we get our own food.
What is that?
We get some buck, which is kudu.
And what do you do for water?
We sometimes dig for it, and sometimes we can get it from the local pops, which we get, they call it the kashimbo, which is in fact a water hole.
The availability of water lies at the core of every single operation launched by South Africans in this region. Without it, no one would survive more than a day, for it's a sun-seared land, blistered by years of drought. The operation must bring in its train anything else that might be needed, like food, ammunition, batteries for radios, medical equipment, and even the rare luxury, like milk in cartons. Prior to the launching of the operation, all supplies are stockpiled, ready for disposal, as and where required. Fuel too has to be taken in drums, enough to keep several squadrons of aircraft operational during a crisis. Like the rest, these supplies are taken in by helicopter. Many of the men comprising this force are veterans by the time they are 20.
You're in the bush on your 21st birthday. Where were you when you turned 20, Lieutenant Richard?
I was last year in the bush at the same time, when I was 20, as well as last Christmas and New Year.
So you've basically had 2 years of operations with this unit?
Basically going now, ending my second year this year.
Are you going to stay in the army?
Yeah, I'm in permanent force at this stage.
You like it?
I like it. It's got a good life.
What is the attraction? What is it that you feel about it?
At this stage, it's just the nature, fresh air, and the bush.
And the war itself, which is obviously why you're here?
There's no other choice. Somebody's got to do the job. Somebody must be around.
What part of the operations are you involved in?
It's just the cleaning up operations, sweeping.
Inside Angola?
Just inside Angola, and we work internal as well.
Do you have your share of contacts in this war?
We have our fair share of contacts. You can go a few days, we get absolutely nothing. Other days, you have your luck.
What do you consider luck?
Your luck is when the day you get your contact and you get your few kills in your contact.
Does this involve a great deal of follow-up?
This does. Definitely does, because follow-up is not just an easy task. Some days you must run at least 20, say anything between 6 and 20 Ks on a follow-up, see what you get.
Following the patrols, the main strike force will enter an area, and here, on day 1, the task force commander will outline the nature and extent of the operation.
The possible position of the Northern Front headquarters of SWAPO is in that vicinity, around about 7 to 8 kilometers northeast of Wanjiwa. There will be 300 to 400 terrorists in that base, as well as the command structure of the Northern Front of SWAPO. As in the past and as normal, we will have nothing to do with the MPLA forces, except if they interfere with our operation against SWAPO, which at this stage we doubt very much. The mission then is we must locate and attack the Northern Front headquarters in that specific area, and after that we must do an area operation in the normal area of the Northern Front from north towards the south with a cut line over there.
Operations are obviously well planned and coordinated. This particular strike involved 9 separate and identifiable phases, spaced over about 2 weeks. Every contingency was catered for, including involvement by Soviet-backed elements, which was, in fact, to take place shortly afterwards during Operation Protea.
To take maximum equipment and weapons from the enemy, or to destroy that equipment of the enemy. And then fourthly, to disrupt the command and control system of the Northern Front headquarters.
Every war spawns its crop of surprises, or, for that matter, lack of them. Then the men wait. In this case, it took the unit almost a week to make a sizable contact. Intelligence reports which had been accurate a month before were outdated by the time that Operation Carnation, as this strike was known, was launched. One day rolled into another, and the men did the best they could to make themselves comfortable in the sparse bush country of South Angola. It's times like this that are dreaded by operational commanders. For even though there is no activity, security has to be maintained at the highest and most efficient level possible. The camp has to be guarded around the clock against attack, a possibility which exists in any combat region. For this, the men dig in. At night, they sleep in prepared positions, like these. For some of us, it's almost a prelude to a fate that ultimately awaits us all. Nightfall in the African bush is always a magnificent spectacle, even in an Angola racked by war. It's what the next day promises that presents the contrasts.
Devolve-os aqui. Nós louvemos o seu nome santo. Você é nosso protetor e salvador. Amen.
Okay, good luck for the operation. This must go well. Okay. Right, you go. Come on. Okay, good luck.
The first wave is airlifted out even before it's light. The rest of the strike force, whether cleaning a rifle or just standing by, wait for the helicopters to return and the brief journey that might take some of them to glory or to eternity. Faces are tense. Most reflect the enthusiasm of youth, even in wartime. For these are the young men that fight South Africa's wars. Divided into sticks, the men scattered to predetermined aircraft which will carry them to their destinations and hopefully action. For though they might become a statistic in the course of the morning's events, few of these battle-hardened soldiers would hope for a lemon, as an aborted operation is colloquially termed. big external operation like this one might involve several strike forces, some of them originating concurrently on Southwest African soil. For many of the black troops, this is also a brothers' war, some fighting with, some against. And while they wait to board, a sergeant who was born in Angola and who has spent years fighting Portuguese imperialism briefs his men. He uses the only language he knows, Portuguese, for it is something of a lingua franca in this desolate corner of Africa. Like the others, these men are intent on action, for theirs is a war of deed, not of word. Then they go in. From a dozen points on the compass, the strike force lifts off. Few of the men carry more than their rifles, spare ammunition clips and water, for most will be back at base before nightfall. Each will have a story to tell. In truth, the measure of a man's worth on this continent is his ability to cope in times of adversity, even in wartime. Occasionally, ground forces will have an arm of backup, such as when several task forces recently struck at an array of SWAPO bases adjacent to Ongiva and Jangango during August this year. For this purpose, the South Africans have developed an incredibly versatile infantry fighting vehicle known as the rattle, the Afrikaanse word for the fiery little African honey badger of Robert Ruark fame. These vehicles, designed for mobile warfare, have proved adept at tackling most of the problems encountered in the kind of war in which the South Africans now find themselves, including the threat of enemy armor. It's no secret that during Operation Protea, rattles acting in concert with Eland armored cars knocked out several squadrons of Soviet-built T-34 and PT-76 tanks without the loss of a single vehicle of their own. Multi-crewed and with a gearbox the size of the average Volkswagen car, the rattle can traverse any kind of terrain. Literally, it is able to plow its way through the densest South Angola forest. That attack occurred at sunset. We went in the following morning at first light. The sight that greeted us was awesome. Later that day, the first wounded survivors were brought in. Like this youngster who was found some distance from the SWAPO camp, lucky to be alive. He had been caught in a crossfire in a subsequent skirmish with an enemy unit. Brought back from the brink of death by the unit doctor, who, like others in the Special Forces unit, is airborne trained for any eventuality, the youngster's condition was first stabilized. Then his leg was bound, and he was casevaced back to South African lines for treatment. The sweep which resulted from the initial contacts covered a vast area of open bush country. For nearly a kilometer, the sweep line followed the contour of bush and burnt grass, evidence of the previous day's hostilities. There was only one overriding consideration. The men needed to watch for landmines or booby traps. And we found them. A telltale wire sticking through the sand told our left flank that there was something there. It was a job for the engineers to sort out. With the kind of experience gained from much practice, the young lieutenant sifted carefully through the soil to ascertain the extent of the trap, which we found covered a fairly substantial cache of Soviet arms. Still not satisfied, he connected a grappling iron to more wires. From a safe distance, the engineers pulled while we waited for an explosion which never came. The entire cache area had been mined for just such an eventuality, with the business end of the bomb covered in plastic against the vagaries of weather. The cache itself yielded its share of surprises. Landmines from Yugoslavia and the Soviet Union, bundles of East German detonators exposed and unstable, Czech cheese mines, so named because they resemble bright yellow cheeses. Throughout the secondary operation, we were provided with air cover, though on that occasion we didn't need it. And once completed, the sweep went on, hour upon hour, in search of more SWAPO caches of explosives and weapons. The work was tedious and exacting, as it is each time there's an external strike, but it has to be done. Above the whine of a battalion of insects and flies, the only friendly sounds come from above. The camp itself, once we reached it, was a daunting proposition. Kilometre after kilometre of twisting trenches and buried bunkers. There was no way of telling whether any or all had been booby-trapped. Obviously, the enemy had fled, leaving little of value behind except clothing, some ammunition, documents, and the primitive paraphernalia of survival in an equally primitive land. When the engineers weren't certain of the security of a particular position, they employed their own means to find out where the danger still lurked.
This SWAPO camp was hit by the Parabats last night. The Parabats are the South African version of American Airborne. They came in at dusk and they withdrew half an hour later. The base itself extends over an area of about 20 football fields. It's huge, it's camouflaged. It typifies the sort of war that is being fought. It's not a sophisticated installation, but it's functional for the purpose of the kind of terrorism which is being waged into Southwest Africa.
SWAPO, it is said, never returns to one of their bases once it has been cleared by the South Africans. Possibly they fear that it might have been booby-trapped in turn. Every SWAPO camp yields its treasures. In this case, dozens of boxes of brand new Russian 82mm recoilless gun ammunition of a type that is being extensively deployed in several insurgent-backed conflicts throughout the globe. These include Lebanon, El Salvador, Chad, Afghanistan, Cambodia, and elsewhere. It's this kind of material which the Soviet Union pumps into an unstable region in a bid to foment revolution. While the rest of Angola starves, these boxes, each one containing 4 bombs, and together conservatively estimated in value at the price of a modest prefabricated cottage, have been transported through some of the most difficult country in Africa to be used in war. Undoubtedly, the finding of the cache must have been a serious blow to the revolutionary movement. Clearly, the South Africans will use this ammunition against the same enemy responsible for bringing it in the first place. Irony certainly has a million faces. Not all of the war material is new. Some had been buried in the sand for years. These mortar bombs are not only unstable, they are dangerous. Not the sort of weapon to use in a tight spot. The rest is brand new. It's this material, complete with Russian markings, that will be airlifted out of this remote region, for to leave it behind could result in it being used against the South Africans at a later stage. For this purpose, a fleet of helicopters is employed, bringing in fresh troops, provisions and water and taking out the spoils of war. Operating in a huge area, reckoned to be about half the size of France, these are the pack horses of the South African Air Force. Sometimes they're loaded a fraction beyond the permissible limit. Then this happens. Loading begins, the criterion being more or less whether the chopper will be able to lift off with this heavy load of munitions or not. To the air crews, it's often a thankless job, well done, and not without its risks. In truth, the helicopter pilots of the South African Air Force are the often unsung heroes of this war. These are the men required to move when the time comes. A troopie might be wounded at sunset, 100 kilometers behind enemy lines. It's not even a question for debate whether a helicopter will go in or not to bring him out. That much is taken for granted. It's not unusual for some of these crews to work through the night during a crisis.
Brigadier, I've been on operations with your forces in this operational area for 3 weeks, both here in northern Southwest Africa and South Angola. You've been fighting this war for 16 years. You've been here longer in conflict than the Americans were in Vietnam, and still you claim you're winning this war.
Well, it's unreasonable and unfair to compare the two wars with each other.
There are still conflicts.
This is a very low-intensity war at this stage. It's a guerrilla war. The Americans lost approximately 50,000 men in Vietnam. We haven't even lost 500 over a period of 16 years.
How many are you losing now a year?
The figure for 1980 was 75.
And SWAPO?
And SWAPO, 1,500, which gives you a ratio of 1 to 20. Which is very good for this type of war. This is even better than the Rhodesian figures.
Your conflict in this region revolves around the civilian population. My impressions are that SWAPO is gaining a lot of support from the civilians, from the local population.
The local population is forced to support SWAPO. They are intimidated by SWAPO. I've shown you various examples of churches and schools which were burned down. I've shown you examples of the local population which were blown up by landmines. They intimidate the local population by in this way, so they are forced to help SWAPO.
But the recruits come from the local population, and the recruits must be willing.
Well, they take the recruits out of the country. They don't go voluntarily. I must say, to a certain extent, a very low percentage is voluntarily. But the great number is forced to leave Southwest Africa and Namibia.
Brigadier, if Angola was to withdraw its support, what would the situation be in this war?
The war is going to terminate immediately.
For what reason?
Because if SWAPO haven't got base areas to operate from, then they can't operate. If they haven't got the support of the Angolans, the Russians, the East Germans, the Cubans, and all the other Eastern Bloc countries, then they can't fight this war.
So the war goes on. For as long as the new brand of communist imperialism fuels the fires of despair, on an already desperate continent, there will be
16 men on a dead man's chest. Will I see you tomorrow? 16 men and I'll see the rest. I won't beg, steal or borrow. I won't beg, steal or borrow. We were just out of reach of the 42nd Squadron when I heard the captain screech. Get down on the sand, don't you waste no time, 'cause we gotta get that gold inside for it turns 5 to 9. And the Buccaneer said, I'll see you dead, I'll see you swinging from the yard. The Buccaneer sang in a nasal twang. There's enough gold here to start on. There's enough gold to get high on. Now the captain had been told where they hid away the gold, and he told us to go dig it up so he could get it sold. But somebody had taken it before his very eyes, and he turned around and looked at me, much to my surprise. And the Buccaneer said, I'll see you dead, I'll see you swinging from the yard. The Buccaneer sang in a nasal twang. There's enough gold here to start on. There's enough gold to get high on. Save me, oh, save me. Save me from the Buccaneer. Buccaneer. Well, I had to get away, so I swam into the bay, and I could hear him coming up, and I could hear him say, when I get hold of you, you won't even cry, 'cause I'll string you from the yard of, and all you'll do is die. Well, he got me on the deck, put the rope around my neck, and I could feel the sweat break out, and I could feel it stick. But the Royal Navy frigate came and rescued me at last. She put one across the bow and fired one into the mast. And the Buccaneer said, I'll see you dead, I'll see you swinging from the yard. The Buccaneer sang in a nasal twang. There's enough gold here to start.